That Carlo Ancelotti raised eyebrow will always see a Champions League game out for Real Madrid. Manchester City 2, Real Madrid 3 at the Etihad in the first game of the knockout stages, and Pep Guardiola and Manchester City throw away another lead in the Champions League to now fall short at home. I don't know if both teams are just equally bad at defending, or should Real Madrid have run away with that and had more goals? Equally, I could say the same thing about Manchester City in the first half. Now, starting with the lineups, guys, especially coming off the back of Real Madrid drawing against Atletico on the weekend, and Manchester City cruising through in the FA Cup. Starting with, obviously, the biggest kind of talking points for both teams is that both teams have deficiencies in defence. Now, you can argue Real Madrid's one is a lot more legit. It's a lot more legitimate in terms of the fact that they're missing a lot of backline members. You know, they're playing a makeshift back four with two of their midfielders filling in. You got Carvajal out, you got Militao, Alaba, of course Rudiger as well. A big piece for Real Madrid in recent games when they've come up against Manchester City. And then Manchester City starting with the backline of Vardio, Ake, and Diaz, as well as Akanji. Now, Akanji obviously went off. I think he picked up a knock in the first half, and a lot of credit, I think, will go to Vardio, and rightfully so. Rightfully so, because he was so key in that first goal. A very well worked goal as well for Manchester City. I can't take that away from them at all. But equally with saying that, I think one thing that I noticed throughout a lot of the game, and probably throughout most of the game, up until Real Madrid just suddenly decided to step it up in the last 10 or so minutes, is that midfield space that Manchester City were able to utilise. Could they have exposed Real Madrid a bit more centrally? I think that's the question maybe after the game. But you had John Stones playing as a DM, so good on the ball, so good at progressing it, and even Kovacic coming in as well, having heaps of time, acres of space in that midfield, and nobody really coming at him. You had Bellingham covering a lot of grass for Real Madrid, and Bellingham is just that guy. Like I feel like a lot of people get caught up on the numbers of goals and assists. Jude Bellingham was so instrumental for Real Madrid, especially in his duel battles and, you know, winning those duels in a midfield that might have not been as easy as I think people maybe anticipated. You had Dani Ceballos and Camavinga. I love Camavinga. I think any team in Europe could do with a player like Camavinga. But both of them were just sitting off Manchester City quite a lot and allowing them to kind of come into that space in the middle to kind of progress the ball. And you had Kevin De Bruyne across different parts of the midfield. You had him on the right, on the left, in the central part. He had a big free role, if you want to call it, free roaming, if you want to call it that as well. But that was one key factor for me in the game. Another factor for me, man, listen, Fede Valverde, man, he is just an amazing player. I feel like with Real Madrid, of course, Vinicius, Mbappe, you got Rodrigo, Bellingham, the superstars of the team. But Fede Valverde is equally instrumental in taking a lot of weight off those players when it comes to the more progressive role. And he's so good at doing that, especially on the right-hand side. And throughout a lot of the game, I saw him kind of coming central or playing a bit more advanced, because Rodrigo as well was shifting across that front three line and, you know, going central, going out far to the left. Fede Valverde was able to go far up on the right-hand side. And you saw Camavinga slotting into that spot that he kind of vacated. Now, for that first goal that Manchester City actually score, where was Tchouaméni? And that is probably the biggest question I have. Of course, I'm not too harsh on the criticisms with Real Madrid's backline because it's a makeshift backline right now, and we already know the injury crisis that they got going on. But Tchouaméni caught in no man's land, out of position, and Vardio just able to make this run into the box, initially starts the actual play in his own third, and just has so much blade of grass to cover to get into that role and get that assist for Haaland. A great chest down to Haaland, who just smashes that in. Now, Fede Valverde, I mentioned him because I feel like he takes a lot of weight off the shoulders of the front line, because, you know, when Real Madrid maybe don't have the natural ball progressor in that midfield, Bellingham is someone that can do it so well. The way he pivots around in the midfield, you know, people speak about the physical aspect of Bellingham's game a lot, but equally I think it's his ball playing ability, or his ability on the ball, that shouldn't go unnoticed. And of course he gets that winner, pulls out the little celebration alongside his teammates. But I think that the biggest factor in the game for me, and where the game was going to be won essentially, was in those midfield duels or those midfield battles. Now let's talk about Kylian Mbappe. finally coming into form over the last couple of months for Real Madrid. There were some questions about, was it the right move to Real Madrid? Obviously, the first month or so was a bit static for him, but he's growing into what we're so used to knowing, which is the Kylian Mbappe, the superstar, if you want to say that. Now, that goal he gets, obviously, is off his shin. It's a lucky finish to go into the back of the net. But I felt like he was doing a lot to kind of stretch the back line. Stretch the back line. That's already feeling uncomfortable. That's already feeling nervy. That's already feeling shaky. I haven't felt confident watching City's backline in a long time, especially this season. And it's funny because there was a time once where their backline was unbeatable. They weren't leaking goals, and now I feel like watching them, you're guaranteed to get at least 1 or 2 goals against them. And especially for a team like Real Madrid that can stretch the backline because of all the pace that they have in the front line. Manchester City tried to counter that slightly by playing a bit further up the pitch. They had the back three essentially. I know that Pep started with a back four, but Vardiol was shifting in with John Stones in the middle, and they had that back three with Ake, Akanji, and Diaz, and later Rico Lewis, who came on, and he tried his best against Vinicius, but ultimately that final goal that Real Madrid end up scoring, questions can be asked about the pass from Kovacic to Rico Lewis, but Rico Lewis in that duel, I feel like he just didn't give 100%, and with a player like Vinicius, if you're going up against him defensively, you have to give 100% in all your duels if you're going to stand even 50% of a chance of beating him in that. And Vinicius just does what Vinicius can do. Doesn't put the ball in the back of the net, but finds Bellingham, who's making that darting run. And again, that is, I feel like, Bellingham's bread and butter for Real Madrid. You got Kylian Mbappe in that 9, who you can see him in the front line, shifting out left, going deep to link up the play, opening up that space behind John Stones and in front of Ake and Ruben Diaz, and you can have players like Bellingham darting into that space, which we've seen him doing last season in his debut year for Real Madrid, and we saw him again doing it today, and gets, of course, the winning goal. Now, the biggest kind of question marks, and it makes me laugh, guys, is the amount of resurgences, reinforcements that Real Madrid were able to bring on in comparison to what Manchester City can bring on. You look at the subs here and look at the options. Real Madrid don't have a lot of options per se. They've got Arda Güler, they had Endrick as well, unused substitutions, but they only brought on Luka Modric, Brahim Diaz, who gets the goal, and Fran Garcia, another defender, to come on. Whereas Manchester City have so much quality on the bench. They had so many options to bring on: Phil Foden, Rico Lewis, they brought on Kovacic, Gundogan, and then Omar Marmoush making his Champions League debut. Look at the quality difference of players that they're able to bring on in comparison to Real Madrid. Real Madrid are mentality monsters. 1-0 down, not a problem. 1-1, not a problem. 2-1, not a problem. We'll come back 2-2 and 3-2, eventually get the winner. They don't take their foot off the gas, and at some points I really feel like the game could have gone a completely different way had Real Madrid put away the chances that they had earlier in the game. And the same can actually be said for City. I'm sure Pep is probably fuming in the changing rooms right now, because there were so many chances that Real Madrid had that equally Man City had as well. And I felt like once Man City went 1-0 up, especially in the first half, the ball was in their court for a lot of the game. I feel like because the ball was in their court a lot of the game, they were in control. They were able to dictate the tempo of the game. Real Madrid, up until the whistle of the first half, from going down 1-0 to the whistle going out at the first half, I feel like they just kind of turned a bit more lethargic with their performance, and they weren't able to get out of gear 1, gear 2. That goal kind of set them a little bit back, and that's why I say the biggest difference, we could talk about quality, we could talk about coaching, but it's the mentality. Pep Guardiola, and Ancelotti too, historically, when they retire, they will go down as some of the greatest managers of this era. But their coaching dynamic is so different. I feel like Ancelotti is more of I trust my players, they can figure it out on the pitch. Whereas Pep is heavily reliant on a system and having the players for the system and utilising and creating benefits of that system and exploiting the opponent by using the system. Whereas Ancelotti, I don't feel like Ancelotti's coaching is really as linear as a coach like Pep Guardiola. But Pep Guardiola and Manchester City have some big problems this season, and I'm not gonna lie, neither of these these two were on my favourites of winning the Champions League. I don't think they're the favourites, but when you're able to get a result like this, especially if Real Madrid are able to get a goal like this multiple times in the game, to come back into the game and then to get a result like this is the difference between Manchester City and Real Madrid. I feel like if the roles were reversed, would Manchester City have come from 1-0 down to then win 3-2? I actually don't think so. Definitely not this current Manchester City that we're seeing this season. And I didn't even speak about the penalty, because I don't even think it should have been a penalty. I feel like it should have been a free kick. It was on the edge of the box. I feel like once Phil Foden went down, once Dani Ceballos got that contact, it was literally on the edge of the box. And that's 2 games in a row, by the way. Atletico on the weekend, and then now Manchester City. Real Madrid have given away 2 penalties. Courtois can't save it from the penalty spot, but then there's question marks about whether that should have been a penalty, because I had some question marks about the one against Atletico as well. But like I said, guys, these are the difference makers in my opinion. Real Madrid, no matter how bad they are, no matter, I wouldn't even say they're bad. I feel like because they're missing some key integral players, the back line can never really gel until they have their most important players there. You can have this prolific front line, and anytime you come up against a front line that's got Vinicius, Mbappe and Rodrigo, it's never going to be as simple as a 1-0 win or a 2-0 win. Manchester City did not see the game out, and Real Madrid, like I said, when you got that front three, you got Bellingham, you got Fede Valverde as well, you got Luka Modric coming on, 40 years old. He's about to be 40 years old and he's playing top flight Champions League football. When you have these kind of players, you're not out of the game. It don't matter what the result is. And Real Madrid have shown it time and time again. This is their competition. This is their bread and butter. Coming back from a deficit is what they do in this. Now, will it be this easy if Real Madrid kind of go forward into the next round and they win? If they win next week and they go forward, they're coming up against what? Atletico or Bayer Leverkusen. It's not going to be that easy. But Real Madrid, until the whistle gets blown, don't count them out. And like I said, I feel like Manchester City have some serious problems this season. They cannot see games out. I don't know what it is. It's like mentally they just crumble. Ederson for that final goal, that's criminal. That is criminal from your most experienced player, or one of your most experienced players, one of your most senior players, to play a ball out like that to 3 Real Madrid players there. That's poor. That is so poor. He needs to do better. And then, not the 3rd goal, sorry, it was the 2nd goal that Brahim Diaz scored. He plays a ball out, a goal kick, and it's just a poor clearance. And then he makes the initial save with his shoulder like this. He doesn't even attempt to get a full hand to it, parry it away with strength. He gets a shoulder to it, and it lands straight into the feet of Brahim Diaz. Real Madrid, like I said, do not count them out until the final whistle blows. But let me know your thoughts down below. Manchester City crumble again. Real Madrid come out on top. And the Etihad hasn't always been an easy destination for Real Madrid to come and get a win. So for them to get that and now take it back to the Bernabeu, I think they should be able to see it out next week against Manchester City. But listen, guys, be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe if you're new here. Comment down below what you thought and who do you think will come out victorious in the second leg.